I'd like to talk a little bit today about why I'm running for governor as a Green and why I'm running for governor in general. I grew up in Maine in a time when there were a lot of things happening in Maine that were really wonderful, and they were local and they were family oriented, and we had lots of community pride, and everybody talked to each other, and we celebrated everything that made us Mainers and made us members of our community. And as I've grown up and the world has gotten more complicated, life has gotten more complicated in general, and communities are more difficult to build. People are working harder for less money, and they're working more jobs to do that, and they're still not breaking even. We're all still making choices between our medicine each month or whether we pay the light bill, and some of us alternate payments because we can't do everything every month. We have homeless people now. I think back to my childhood and I think about homeless, and there was one gentleman in Belfast, Maine. I moved there when I was 5 and live just outside of there in Waldo now, but there was one gentleman who in the winter you'd be working downtown and you'd see him up against the window around 8 o'clock, and you'd call the police and they'd come down and take him home to the jail for the night. Nobody was homeless. We took care of each other. And I think that we still have that core value in Maine. We are a large state and a very small community. And it is that community that I most approach and try to work with and build as I go forward in this campaign. I've listened to a lot of announcements by a lot of different candidates. I think there are 16 other candidates in the race now. And isn't that a wonderful thing for democracy this year? It's unfortunate that most of them are in 2 parties, but we can move on from that. But when I think about running for governor, I think about what life was like when I was a kid, and I think about how we can bring those values forward. So I want to build community. I want to find out what's important to each community in each region, and I want to be the best advocate for that I can be as governor. I have an agenda. There are things I'd like to see. I'd like to see more and better paying jobs. I'd like to see year-round employment that's stable for everybody with a good income, and I'd like to see everybody have health insurance. I had to wait until I was 67 to get Medicare. There's something fundamentally wrong in our country when I have to be that old to make sure I can go to the doctors whether I need to or not. I also think we really need to look at education in our state. We've fallen way behind on funding it. And I think without raising property taxes that we might have an opportunity to look at fully funding K through 12, as well as finding the resources to send every high school graduate to Maine to a public technical school, community college, or university for nothing. We need to invest this money in our youth if we're going to stay in Maine. Youth move back to Maine, they want to be here, they work 3, 4 jobs, they try and get ahead. It's very difficult. We need to make things easier. If we lighten the burden of debt with which they graduate from college, we begin their pace and forward movement into the workforce with a much greater opportunity of their success. We need to look at long-term jobs and employment. And we have to link that to energy, education, and what works in Maine right now that we can make work better. What works in Maine right now are entrepreneurs and small businesses, the backbone of the Maine economy, small, independent stores, family businesses. They're crucial. We need to find a way to make sure that economic development makes them a first-tier priority instead of an afterthought. I think we can take the funds that are available, think differently about how we spend them, and come together on policy that's derived from conversations with voters who have the most at stake. Gosh, I think about tourism as another major factor of our economy, and I think it's really only located on the coast and in the ski areas, and we have vast resources of beautiful places to bring people to in Maine. Problem is we don't have a lot of ways for them to get there. Again, let's look at what we have in place. We have wonderful hiking trails, urban and rural, in this state that link all sorts of areas regionally. What if we developed a program where you could link all of those regional hiking and walking trails and bring hiking and tourism all across Maine, through the Maine woods to the Allagash? Why can't we take them to Eustis to see what it's really like to eat at the Roadkill Cafe? We can work with private landowners and state and unorganized townships to bring rest areas and camping areas along the way. We have a lot of farming in Maine. Maine has been bucking the national trend on farming for several years now, with a growing number of small family-owned farms that offer stable employment, usually to an average of 4 people each. We do a lot of farm-to-table. We could throw a farm-to-table meal trailside somewhere in the middle of the Maine woods that's catered by Maine farmers and Maine people, illustrating the best of what Maine food has to offer. We can be food secure in Maine, and we can have food sovereignty. We can be the breadbasket of New England and beyond. We have a lot of things going for us. We need to think outside the box. We need to think about different ways to make these things happen, and we have to do it responsibly with very little increase of cost to the Maine taxpayer, if any increase at all. I'd like to have the opportunity to talk to Maine people about that vision I have of how we can make Maine work for everybody again, how we can stop this false dichotomy of North and South Maine. We are all the same state. We pay our taxes for the same reasons, and we vote in our elections for the same reasons. We want Maine to work, but we can't make it work the way it's been going now. For years now, there's been a substitution of real political action on behalf of the people they represent, and a lot of posturing, finger-pointing, and name-calling. I don't have that base. As a Green, I run as a clean election candidate just because of my party affiliation, but also because I chose to enlist as one. I'm not going to be paying attention to special interests, because the only special interest I have are the people I talk to as I walk around this state, talk to small communities, join church lunches, speak to people in their homes. Those are the people I want to represent. If they are parts of larger organizations, good for them. My goal is to find the greatest dialogue among the most people, build a platform that will work, because they will insist that I am their advocate, moving their ideas forward, and their representatives must support that agenda. And that's why I'm running. There's less to focus on with the Green Party. You don't have to worry about where my money's coming from. You can look at our records online. We don't take any corporate money. We don't take any PAC money. We don't allow those corporations or PACs or special interests to speak for us. That's a major difference. And I do believe that when Citizens United was allowed to stand, it altered forever the face of politics at the state and local level as well as the federal level. And I think that's why, if you look at Maine, we have term limits, clean elections. And if the legislature behaves itself and does what it's supposed to, we'll have ranked choice voting. I'd like to have an opportunity to take all this political strife and division and turn it into something that's really not a stumbling block, but a stepping stone.